I want to do a video about a survey mistake on the Texas-New Mexico border, but that video will deal with latitude and longitude. So to tell one story, I have to tell another to explain it. However, talk about that, I'd rather talk about time first. Talk about time is a whole other story that really hasn't lived before it. To make things simple, I'm just going to go back about 2,500 years. Ancient Babylon and the number system they used. We use what is called base 10. The Babylonians used a number system based on 60. 60 can be divided by every number 1 through 10 except 7. 60 is also divisible by 12. If you start playing with the zeros, 12 or 120 can be divided by 6 or 60 evenly. The multiples of them are easily divided in your head as well. If you want to start a fight on the internet, go to some math or history forum and say the Greeks invented the 360-degree circle. Or the Babylonians, or the Egyptians, it doesn't matter, because someone will argue very forcefully that one of the others did it first, or best, or refined it, or something like that. Just know that 360 degrees, or 360, is divisible by 12, 24, and 60 evenly. If you're starting to see, are you starting to see the time connection yet? 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and 24 hours in a day. The Babylonians didn't get the 365-day-a-year thing figured out. They tried 360, and it kept messing up. They devised a very complicated series of short years and long years that over a 19-year period would repeat and be accurate only every few years of those 19. But it did repeat and was accurate every 19 years. Their system included seconds, minutes, hours, and days. Or they actually introduced that to the common thought and language, and is why we still use them today. They work. Months and years took a few more thousand years to figure out, and it's a story I'm not diving into today. Just because seconds, minutes, and hours are named doesn't mean anyone can say exactly how long they are. Or if they can't repeat the length accurately. A stick in the ground with a rock marking the shadow where noon is can tell a person when it is noon. But it isn't portable, and you really need 183 rocks or so, because each day's noon will cast just a little different shadow location on the ground as the sun moves north and south on our horizon between the summer and winter solstices, which is another story I may tell at a different time. Anything casting a shadow can tell a person approximately what time it is. People also tried water clocks that had a tank of water draining through a small hole into another tank that had markings for how many hours had passed. They were not very accurate, really labor intensive, and didn't work that well when the water froze in the winter or evaporated in the summer. Hourglasses or sand clocks, were a bit better, but even if turned over properly, they'd be minutes, if not hours off after a day or two. It wasn't until the pendulum was thought up and applied to timekeeping that time was able to be mechanically reproduced with accuracy. Grandfather clocks do not work on sailing ships, though. The only way to tell where you are in the middle of the ocean is by looking at the angle of the sun when it reaches its highest point of the day relative to the horizon. If done correctly, a person can figure out within a few miles how far north or south of the equator they are. That is called latitude. However, time is needed to determine a location east or west, which is called longitude. Notice how the word long, which is a function of time, is part of that word. Time matters. King Charles II of England, in 1675, founded the Royal Observatory to, quote, in order to the finding out of the longitude of places for perfecting navigation and astronomy, unquote. The location was on royal land in Greenwich. They perfected the tools and techniques required to take sun sightings, star sightings, and start compiling an almanac of navigation tables. But they couldn't tell time accurately enough to locate a ship at sea. Parliament passed the Longitude Act of 1714 to try and fix that problem. there was a cash reward of £20,000 to anyone that could figure out a way to locate a ship at sea with accuracy. £20,000 will let someone today live pretty well. Figure around $3 million in current money. That was a lifetime treasure 300 years ago. A carpenter named John Harrison started teaching himself how to build clocks. His brother James helped, and by 1735, they had what they thought was a working portable clock called the H1. The longitude board in 1737 liked it. After several sea trials, decided to pay Mr. Harrison £500, with only £250 actually being paid to him. The other half was to be paid when he made an improved model. The H2 and H3 clocks took 24 more years to complete, test, and figure out they weren't exactly it. The clock was the H4. It looked like we consider a regular pocket watch, except it was the first, and this that was unique to any watch before it. The H4 finally got approval for a sea trial in 1761 with William Harrison, the son, who had taken over the quest as his dad and uncle got older, going along to make sure the watch was working and being used correctly. The clock worked perfectly. Once back in England, though, the longitude board didn't see it that way. Not wanting to pay out any more money, they ordered another sea trial in 1764. That sea trial was also a success. The longitude board tried to only pay £10,000 out of the original £20,000 to the Harrisons. Things went back and forth until Parliament made a new 1765 Longitude Act, which put into law the rule changes that kept the Harrisons from being paid. I think the Harrison family trials, determination, persistence, triumphs, and setbacks would make a great movie. But I'm only a YouTuber with 26 subscribers, so do I know. Now that England had a working portable clock, they could combine it with the tables and charts they had spent almost 100 years compiling at the Greenwich Royal Observatory. The Astronomer Royal published the first annual Nautical Almanac in 1767. Amazon has the 2022 version for around $30 currently. Yes, it's still published, and that important of a document. The English did something amazing for the time. They let anyone from anywhere buy the almanac. Now all of a sudden, anyone in the world with the almanac, a sextant, and a Harrison-type watch could figure out where they were anywhere in the world. Truly an accomplishment of historic proportions. It also made Greenwich the center of navigation for the world, since all the charts were centered on it and its time. The French had their own time based on Paris, the Spanish had their time, and so did several other countries. Greenwich Mean Time soon became the time all seagoing clocks needed to be set to. This video is about time, though, not navigation. How did all these people with a Harrison-type clock know what time to set it to? The people at Greenwich decided to build a tower, or to keep it naval, a mast. A mast was built on top of a building that had a wood and leather ball about 4 or 5 feet in diameter attached to it in 1833. At 1 o'clock every afternoon, the ball will be lowered to signify what time it was. Any ship within miles could observe and set their clock. Soon, time balls spread all over the world. The Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C. still has a ball drop from its mast at noon every day. Everyone has probably seen the ball drop on New Year's Eve in Times Square. It isn't a carryover to the old time balls. The Times Square is called what it is because the New York Times newspaper was there. The ball drop for New Year's Eve didn't start until 1907. It is just a show with no timekeeping historical significance. Greenwich Mean Time started being used by cities and towns all over England as a telegraph spread with the railroads. Since electricity travels at the speed of light, an operator could hold down a telegraph key to get a long signal, then instantaneously let everyone know the same time. This was done in coordination with the ball drop in Greenwich. the United States had a similar system. Once the transatlantic telegraph cable was laid, allowing instantaneous communication, syncing of the different times became needed. The International Meridian Conference of 1884 in Washington, D.C. officially made the north-south longitude over Greenwich the prime meridian of the world, with all other longitude based on it and its time. Ireland and France stuck to their time and had clocks a few minutes different. However, the International Time Zone system is based on Greenwich Mean Time and is what we live by today.